today. Look, why don't we begin with China? The Chinese embassy, in fact, attacking Peter Dutton, accusing him of political attacks for calling for transparency around China's role in coronavirus and how this got out in the first place. Does this show that China's not going to allow any sort of transparent process here?
Well, we'll have to wait and see exactly what China does and its reaction to calls for an independent investigation. What matters here, though, is that we do have as much transparency as possible. It's important to understand what's occurred here. I think it's less about rushing to a blame game as it is about just trying to understand exactly what's occurred. China needs to understand it, but the world needs to understand it so that we can learn as much as possible from this event and make sure that it doesn't happen again. And there are understandably a whole lot of questions which remain unanswered, but we don't get to the bottom of them without a thorough and transparent investigation. And in that sense, this is an issue which has impacted the entire globe, so I think the world's got an interest in it.
Would you support the Scott Morrison push for the World Health Organization to have weapons inspector level powers when they are going into countries? Because that was part of the issue, wasn't it? Who basically went in and weren't allowed a lot of access to various things.
Yeah, I think this is a constructive suggestion to beef up the powers of the World Health Organization. And what it really speaks to, Tom, is the need at this moment in time to have a strong, effective, functioning World Health Organization as part of a strong global architecture. This is a moment in time where we need to be having more of that rather than less. And it's why the calls, previously about withdrawing funding, the kind of decision that's been made in the US seems to go in the wrong direction. Rather than abandoning the World Health Organization, it's really important actually that we're investing more in it. There are obviously issues inside the World Health Organization, but we need to be there to fix them up. And I think giving it these kinds of powers is a step in the right direction.
As diplomatic as any exhortation can be for China to be transparent, make sure the people around the world know how this got out, avoid future circumstances, is there any indication from what Xi Jinping's done in the past that he'll allow that, because it could allow some sort of blame to go towards China?
Well, I mean, ultimately, that's really a question that the Chinese need to answer. I'm not about to answer it for them. I think it is important that we
Do you have any great hope that he's really going to say, all right, come and have a look, here's everything that happened here, here's what we knew in early January, for example?
Well, I think it is right that the world pushes for that and that Australia plays its part in that cause. We do need to have as transparent an inquiry and as independent an inquiry as we can possibly have. I mean, I think it is important that we are not rushing towards a blame game, and I think governments around the world, which have responsibilities for managing a very difficult set of circumstances, are tempted to go down the path of a blame game. To me, it's not about that. It is actually about a search for understanding, but we need to have a transparent investigation to get there, and we've got to continue to seek that from China.
Okay. You mentioned Donald Trump and the call out of the US to just pull funding for the World Health Organization. What have you made of the US president's handling of COVID-19?
Again, I'm not going to give a commentary on how the United States government has handled this. I mean, this is a very complex society with tiers of government which differ around the country in the US. And I think one of the things that we've seen around the world is that the levers that each country has to respond to this crisis differ very significantly. And we're not sitting in the seat in Washington in terms of the set of circumstances that they have and the levers they have available to them. We've got our own to worry about. What you can say, though, is that for the United States, it's an absolute tragedy. I mean, we are seeing death on a very large scale. This is an event which is as significant as any that we've seen in recent history. And given 9/11, that's a very big call to make. But that's actually what's going on.